Hey guys, I am about to become a biological father for the second time any day now. Fritzy is fit to burst, as we would say in the north of England. She's going to give birth very soon. And it's had a lot going on inside me about fatherhood and what that means to me and defining my position. Because one thing that I've always seen is that in the terms of speaking about spirituality, at least outside of religion, that most persons online never speak about that very key core proponent of life, family. They teach many different metaphysical concepts. There's nothing, I'm not judging, but they teach many different forms of this, isolation, meditation, but they never really share about functioning in the family unit. Christianity does tackle that, however, but in the realm of spirituality online, it's very rare that you hear a spiritually minded person speak on family and their ability to commune with God whilst dealing with family as well. And also, for me, the insight I have gained over the years working in the realm of what we do work in is I've seen endlessly the problems men bring to family when they don't turn up for their family. And thus this is a video about my fathering side, that side of me which is clearly defined by God and nature to be masculine. Unfortunately, of course, we live in a time where the dictionary has said that female and male are based on gender is societally constructed around humans, and this is an awkward topic as well, because if you turn up to a hospital and say that you're a man but you're biologically a woman, you have to have a different diagnosis. So there is a natural there's a potential that you're pregnant, etc. There's a natural man and woman. There's a natural male and female outside of this dictionary concept. And that natural side of us has certain wants and desires and yearnings that are often not being catered for. Now, as a man, what I can say is, first and foremost, a man must turn up for his family and his children. And it's not always easy, and I'm going to speak about why men fail at, I feel why men fail at being fathers and have this massive battle. But one of the things is, I saw recently something which rang very true with me, and I thought I would share about this, is Denzel Washington. Sorry, I had to spray some eucalyptus on me because there's mosquitoes everywhere. Denzel Washington recently said, which stuck with me as poignant because it's true in the world I've lived as well. When a child does not find a father at home, they will find a father in the street. And if not in the street somewhere, they're going to find that somewhere, unfortunately. And this is where men are failing. Men are not showing up for their families, and the effect that has on our society in the West and in Africa is phenomenal. Now, I know men who can't turn up for their families, not because they're busy working, but because at some point they fell for temptation and they had multiple children with multiple different mothers, and it's physically impossible to keep that family dynamic going and turn up and be a good father for that. But there are at least things you can do to navigate that, and if you've made that mistake, then you can start trying to turn up, try to be a presence, try to be a provider. And the only reason that you wouldn't is if you are not connected to that natural core part of who you are by being a God-made man. Now, family is key. We have to have family. The idea that this experience on earth is to be escaped is a spirituality I can't abide with, because the joy and the benefit of family is beautiful. And the experience of life is beautiful when you really get down deep into it. But even if you don't perceive it as beautiful, if you're here and you're going to bring another life in, you should be morally responsible for that life. You just should be. What I see as a man and a father before I was a biological father, I was a guardian father of children who were not my own. And there was a crisis point. We had about 8 special needs children living at Featherstale. I was living in the compound but not in the children's home. So I would try every morning to go to see all of these kids and spend time with each one. And at night I would do the same. And there was a girl who still lived with us called Catherine. And she used to scream at night, long into the night, just wailing. She has cerebral palsy. And I started creating a routine where I would go and sing to try and calm her down, because the other people, everyone was struggling to calm this child down in general. She had been found locked in a room and had a very traumatic start. So I remember standing there after singing and thinking, I just can't do this. It's too much. I've got to work. This is just too much. And God just came on me so strong, and he said, hey, you're not the head of this family. I am. And this is the nature of the alteration from that point, where I started designing Share Tanzania to operate as a family. I can't be the head of so many children, it's not natural, but I can at least try to find that, the source of that in me, and express it into an infrastructure that can. And that's the whole point of what we are developing with Share Tanzania as best we can. So I found then this difference where I put God at the head of my family. And even with Aslan, I see Aslan as God's child, and I'm privileged to bring God's child into this world and into becoming a man where he can do the same thing. And that journey in itself is deeply connective with God, because what's more precious than a child of God, even if they are biologically yours? That is how I perceive it. And there's just this precious package that I must bring safely and honorably into manhood. And indeed, I have that coming again with another son, and I'm happy to have another son to do that with, to bring into this world. Now, why are men not turning up for their families? Because inside all of us is a good father in every man, buried in there. And I say buried because we are buried at the moment. Modern day, this is the one of the things where we came away from the Christian household. Judeo-Christian morality has benefits. Modern day man has lost something critical to having a strong, centered, sane society. We've gone into a hyper-liberal society. We can see it at the moment. People are just going crazy, and none of them really know what they want. We are not into working hard for our families anymore. We're not into showing up for them. Everyone wants things for free. Everyone feels disempowered. And the power comes from expressing that which is naturally part of you. To be a provider and a father is very natural. It's the most natural thing for a man to do. God designed it that way. And there has to be space for that masculinity to express, or we see the failings of men not showing up as fathers. Now, when I say that masculinity to express, men have a raw deal. The highest suicide rate, unemployment, drug addiction, homelessness, it's all men. Men are really struggling inside our current way of society. And one of the reasons for that is the way we form economy with the regulations we have, in my eyes. We have no regulation on what we can sell and thump into our men or our boys who are going to become men on the planet. And thus, at this present time, we can hit them hard with instant gratification daily for prolonged periods of time for profit. And in doing that, you're actually programming and training the man into an instant gratification mindset. Computer games, TV series, cartoons, leading into alcohol, drugs, junk food. When these things have no regulation on how they are thumped into a child in a young man's life, eventually his flesh is so filled with the programs of the adrenaline hits and the hormonal responses from those things, that spending time in the stillness where you find that beautiful, subtle enjoyment of life, which is where I say you find the presence of God. Be still and know that I am God, and be still, and you have but to be still, and God will fight for you. they don't feel that. And even if they come away to somewhere like I am now to find that, their flesh will start to fire little impulses. You should go and eat that junk food. Maybe you should pull your phone out of your pocket. Maybe you should go home and watch pornography. Maybe you should call your friends and go to the bar. And bit by bit, the stillness that we find, that natural part of us, which is the fulfillment that we all seek in those external things to begin with, is so buried under the stimulus of the flesh that men no longer understand their role as a father after they procreate a child. Now, some men, I honour them who say they don't want to have children, and they say it because they say a child hasn't got any entertainment or interest for me. Most of the people I know like that, and I'm not saying it offensively, either it's just a natural propensity because they're pursuing God and they want to find something beyond the family life, which is their own prerogative, but many I know are because they have programmed themselves to be stimulated by computer games from a young age and by TV series and then drugs and masturbation, pornography, and all of these things have created such a level of need by the flesh for that sort of stimulus that the subtle, gentle enjoyment of raising a family and the heart-centered joy of having that child is it's very hard to feel it because the flesh is so loud and you've got to crack through that. Now, if we carry on as we are, we will see that our inability to admit that the man-made visions of the world, the screen-created visions, which is ironic as I'm speaking to you from a screen, but the entertainment and distraction of the screen is going to be the undoing of technologically advanced society. Not only is it creating higher crime rates because men are not able to feel that nurturing fatherly side of themselves and turn up for their children, and thus we have children turning to the street, turning to crime. Extremely high levels of murder are coming from communities where we have no good family unit, fatherless family units, etc. And those children grow up to be a certain way. They grow up to not have that taught into them, and they see nothing wrong with propagating that too. But here's the ironic thing, is in among all of that you have people who are speaking about depopulation. And they say that we're going to be depopulated, and many of these people are very hooked on media. And even if they like to admit it or not, they spend too much time on social media, not enough time in the natural world. In technologically advanced, entertainment saturated countries, the family size is going down. The thing that's depopulating them, and they're freaking out about it, is their action beyond their words. They are logging into social media platforms to research things and then to promote those things. And they are saying with their words that it's going to be maybe vaccinations, or it's going to be chemtrails and all of this sort of stuff. Or it's going to be done by economically strangling, or it's being done, which it certainly is, by abortion clinics, sadly. And we have this mindset where people are saying we're under attack. And the thing is, they're putting it on others, and they're not realizing that right there in their room is the very thing that's going to depopulate their country. That's the technology and the distraction that they are using to say those things. Because in Africa, that's not happening, because there's no distraction from the natural want to fall in love, have children, have a family. What is happening, however, is society is selling in Africa, where I have lived nearly a decade now, is selling to the young men the idea that they can have a different way. And again, the family morality is not present. And the women are left raising the children. And that's why we have so many children in the education fund. Most of those children, the fathers abandoned, the mother and the child, they weren't there for them. And that also comes at a time where they are starting to have access to Western saturated advertisement and media and hip-hop videos and so on and so forth, and the erosion of the Christian morality is falling apart, and the idea that you show up and you turn up for your family is falling apart, and it's becoming endemic everywhere inside where Western capitalist consumerist culture has an influence. And it's because, in my eyes, we are not regulating how we program the flesh of our children with gratification, and if not, then we are not educating and training them to be able to find their center. We're not educating and training them to aggressively detox the saturation of that entertainment so as they can be still. They can find that subtle enjoyment of the natural world, which has nothing to do with screens and movies, etc., but has everything to do with raising a family and showing up for your children. And that's the very natural side of us that's been overtaken by the unnatural side of us, and we have to find an equilibrium in there. I recently posted and said that if we could find our inner goose, and it's for men especially who do abandon families more often than women, if they would find their inner goose, the humble goose is better than most men at matrimony and being there for their family. If a goose has a gosling, an infant that is sick, and the time for migration comes, they will stay even though they know they jeopardize and are going to suffer and jeopardize their own life. They will stay with that gosling out of duty as a parent. If their mate passes away, some will pine to death, but most often they will spend their whole life alone, away, because they mourn so deeply this union they had with their mate. If humans could find that inside themselves, that inner goose, as I was saying affectionately, then we would not leave our goslings. Men would not leave their children. And we would not then compare the woman who we've chosen to spend our life with others. We would not then wonder if there's something better over here or over there. We would not then wonder why when we spend time with our children, it's costing us a lot of confusion because we don't understand why it's not fulfilling, why it's not stimulating us, why it's not just enough. And it's because our whole hormonal system, our mind, everything has been programmed so efficiently by consumerism to be stimulated and enslaved to these things for profit of other men and women on the planet. And until we sever that and get men to stay with their families, get men to be fathers, we'll always see increases in crime, we'll always see increases in the economic fallout, and we'll also constantly see young people who don't understand and value, like we do in the extreme left at the moment. Persons are not willing to work to build and maintain a good life for themselves. They want it given to them. We're millennial generation, the most self-entitled generation in history, and they don't understand the essence of hard work. Speaking as a millennial, I was once there and I get it, because only after working hard and achieving do I understand that I was self-entitled and I wanted things for free. And the reason I pin that down is because society had programmed my body to be totally plugged into the stimulus of the flesh around me, into consumer stimulus, into whatever stimulus is on the flesh for men. And thus I couldn't sit still with God and feel that natural part of me. And in the stillness with God is where you feel the natural, and where you feel the natural part of what you are. Then you will see that the subtle enjoyment of having a child and a family is actually far more fulfilling than the TV series or the computer game or the pornography or whatever else it might be. It's only you couldn't feel it because you needed to detox this very instant gratification level of yourself out. So what do we need to do as society? Well, no one's going to change consumerism any day soon. So what I say is we aggressively and firmly educate and train our men and our young men and our boys and our women as well to stand firm against these impulses that are being fed into them by consumerism, to be able to stay still with God. And to do that, you need them to be able to sit somewhere like this without something that's going to stimulate the flesh dragging you back to Babylon, back to that matrix of consumerism. If you come yourself, you can find out what your problems are. Sit still, and what is the first thing your body starts telling you to do to not be still? Go home and watch something. I'll get my phone out and write somebody. Go and eat some junk food. Go and drink some alcohol. Whatever's rising up from within you and stopping you from being still and present with God has likely been programmed into you by the system that you have grown up in. And if you can get to the point where your want to be still is louder than any of those impulses, and you have discipline over them pulling you back to those behaviors, then I feel in my own life that from rising from within there is the natural want to be a father and to show up for your children. And this will alter humanity immeasurably if men could just, without sounding cliche, be morally good men, show up for their families, be present, be strong, put God at the head of your family. And by putting God at the head of your family, you will understand that you need to be able to be still and present with God, and that automatically forces you to pull away all of the things that stop you from putting God at the head of your family, such as those stimulating consumerist programs that our flesh has unfortunately picked up along our journey. So, I'm excited to be a dad again, and do as I say, not as I do. I'm not perfect at this, my wife will tell you, but at least I'm aware of it, and being aware of it is enough for me to work towards being that better father. So, God bless, guys. Bye.